Hello, guys, and welcome back to Relevant Founders, brought to you by Relevant Software. Relevant is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers world-class standard products for Fortune 500 companies and promising startups. Today, our next guest on the show is Sarah Morton, Chief Strategy Officer for Meetami. Hello, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, good morning or good afternoon.
Morning.
Very well.
Definitely. What time is it over there?
It is 9 a.m.
Okay. Sarah, what I'd like to do before we get into the world of Meetami, I want to get to know you a little bit better. So just tell me something about Sarah Morton, which not many people know about.
Gosh, I'm a pretty open book. This is my sixth startup, so a lot of people don't know I've spent most of my career in the startup space, and love the art of the start.
We're going to get to that in a minute because that sounds very interesting. To start off, Sarah, tell me, what is Meetami?
So Meetami is our company. My co-founder and I started it a little over 2.5 years ago, and we looked at what's going on in the world and where, now we're saying Web3, but where technology and data and infrastructure was going. And we got really excited about the opportunities for where tokenization is going. And so we looked at traditional finance and traditional systems and started to question, how is the world of traditional finance going to integrate to the world of digital assets? And looking at the deep dive, there's fantastic people who are building liquidity and custody solutions and products, but you've got a whole new technology language emerging with tokenization and cryptocurrencies. And so we decided our role was going to be to bridge traditional finance to the emerging world of digital assets. So the company overall, that's its goal. And then there's lots of sub products that support different pieces of that journey.
Definitely. We'll talk about some of these in a second. Tell me, why 2019? What happened in 2019 where you both thought we need to do this?
So 2018, my co-founder and I we had the opportunity, we'd left a company we were working with, and we had that rare opportunity where we had a lot of time on our hands to really think about what was next. And so we started looking at AI, data centers of the future, Bitcoin mining, what was going on in this space. And as many people know, once you go down the rabbit hole, you can't emerge, you can't unsee what's coming. And so 2018 and a lot of 2019 for us was spent traveling the world, going to crypto conferences, Bitcoin conferences, meeting with people in the space. And through that journey, it really emerged that how are people going to put this together? So how is a financial advisor going to figure this out? And so it was really a journey of learning and seeing what was out there and seeing the opportunity to create something more turnkey and bring these solutions into more of a packaged offering. So in 2019, I think a lot of it was the world was getting ready. Like we work with a lot of traditional financial companies that are 20 or 30 years old, and you sort of say, oh, we're a 2-year-old company, but we really couldn't have emerged earlier. The technologies, everything was so consumer focused, so self-managed. So it really was looking at the timing was critical of where this is going to evolve next.
With obviously 2019, 2020, COVID came along. How was that as a startup?
Well, it's definitely had its pros and cons. So we were, a lot of the sales opportunities we were looking at early 2020 just fell completely off the radar because the early adopters had a whole different range of problems to deal with. It's really interesting in traditional finance, there was a lot of face-to-face. Like in the wealth advisory world, there was a lot of driving to meetings, and even electronic signatures on documents hadn't been adopted and allowed by regulators. So from a sort of negative point of view, our target clients had a different focus. And so what we decided to do is we looked at the world and we said, well, we're locked in for a while. We don't know what's going to happen. So we'll take the time and we'll build. And so what we did during that window was really build and focus on building and really focus on the roadmap and the depth of technology. And then it's helped us because so many people have become more aware of the world of investments, people have just been doing more research. So our market has also evolved. The wealth management world has become more digital. Advisors have become more digital. So it's had its pros and its cons, but we sort of joke that Amy was born in a pandemic, and she's a really tough, she's a really tough company.
I mean, that's when I looked at it and I saw the founding date, I thought, okay, so that would have been early on, straight through COVID. And obviously COVID's not something that I like to really bring up in these anymore, because it's one of those things that everyone spoke about so much, but when it's really involved in the beginning, it's really important. How did it look? How did your team look at the beginning? What was the beginning team?
So it was my co-founder and I working on it, mostly the two of us with a couple of other people providing input, and a lot of it was working with vendors. And then once we really started to see the path forward, that we needed a software interface, that we needed learning, we started reaching out really to our A team in our network, people that we've known for years and wanted to work with. We recognized we needed a really strong, experienced leadership team because there was so much complexity and, going into the world of finance and banking, so much regulatory, so much change management. So we started to expand our team. We brought in, advisors who with specific expertise like SOC 2 compliance, security. And so we really expanded and the sort of put the right people in the right seats on the bus once the vision was clear. And
How important was that beginning team? Obviously, the beginning, like they say, the beginning 9 is so important for the future success of the company. How important was that for you to get that right?
Oh, hugely. I mean, it really, at the end of the day, is all about the people. And so having that bench strength, having people that could bring, we have a number of C-levels on our team who have run companies. So you've got serious bench strength. And so everybody understands what being a CEO is and understands what needs to be done. So it definitely, that experience allowed people to really tackle the problems and we gelled together amazingly as a management team. So
nice. And what are you sitting at now? How many people have you got on the team now?
I think, so we have a hybrid of full-time, part-time contractors. So we're low 20s.
Okay. Tell me about let's go right back to the beginning. The original MVP. Tell me about that.
Well, it started on a whiteboard with me drawing pictures and us having lots of debates about, could this work? How could this work? And I think, terrifies my CTO what we came up with, but we really, through our sort of drawings and architects, we came up with a workflow, and we went straight into Keynote and mapped out what we thought, the boxes and the user experience would look like. And then we hired a product manager from the wealth industry, young guy who great experience in the traditional wealth and loves crypto and had a passion for it and understood what we were up to. And then we hired a local outsourced dev shop to build the Figma demo. And so that group, who was really experienced in both product management and development of an MVP, created this demo, which I think my co-founder and I demoed to about 200 or 300 people in 6 months. Like we spent the latter half of 2020 demoing and getting feedback and just validating, is this right? Have we hit everything? And did you? Was there any really big pivots at the beginning, or did you get it right? To this day, we can still use that Figma demo, and it still stands true, which we were really pleased with because neither of us had actually built software from scratch. We built other types of companies, and so yeah, it was, and we got fantastic feedback. Because we'd covered so many things and thought about the roadmap, the feedback was consistently positive. That's what we need. That's what's missing in the market. So it really gave us the confidence to then build our dev team and actually go into production.
Interesting there. So when you had your outsourcing team at the beginning, when you were obviously looking to build it and grow, what were your requirements when you were looking for your outsourcing team?
We were looking for someone who could deliver our vision, but provide the expertise, because as I mentioned, neither of us had built software before. So we really required a team that could deliver what we were hoping for without us knowing exactly how to manage that process and make sure everything was included. So their domain expertise was really critical.
How have you found since then, obviously since the beginning and continuing to use outsourcing team, how has it benefited or not benefited? How has it worked within the team, basically?
Yeah, so for All the teams really, we're a hybrid of in-house and outsourced. And, that's a function of we've been able to identify what we need to know, what we need to own, what roles are going to be long-term, and then where we need expertise to come in on a project basis to solve problems. So whether it's, like I said, the dev team, we have core team members, and then pieces get outsourced. And same for marketing. We do a lot of the marketing with our in-house team, but then we, use outsourced resources as needed. And same for our Learn. We have our Amy Learn product. We can't possibly create all the content that's needed. So we have a network of partners who've created content and learning modules, and we package it together. So it's very effective for us. And we fundamentally believe the future will be hybrid. So we're taking full advantage of that.
Nice. What has been the hardest kind of engineers to find? Obviously, the market is so saturated. What has been your approach to finding these engineers?
So our CTO builds the engineering team, and I think our biggest challenge is just that so much of the blockchain world is new, that you can't put up a job post for somebody with 10 years experience, right? It's very rare. So a lot of it is training on the job, and and we deal with a number of networks because we support a number of coins that our clients can invest in. So you've got to just out of the gate have Bitcoin knowledge, Ethereum knowledge. So you've got this world of blockchain, and then you've got different networks, different protocols, different transactional systems. So it's really about finding people who have a passion for it and want to learn, rather than being able to find experienced people.
I guess that's it, isn't it? Because it's people who have themselves done their homework in order to become experts in it, because there's been no previous kind of way to be able to gain that kind of knowledge before accepting themselves.
Yeah, and even if you look at the computer science programs at the universities, there might be a blockchain group or a blockchain program, but we're not seeing a lot of blockchain programming courses and crypto courses yet. So, we're going to need to see that shift in the world where the universities are teaching the protocols. But, with engineers, curious engineers typically have been playing around with blockchain because it's new and it's interesting. So most people we found have some personal experience with it, not necessarily corporate experience.
Your mission. Okay, so to create a place of education, information, and transparency that empowers wealth management advisors to comfortably and confidently navigate the digital assets world. What were the challenges in this? What were the challenges in creating that mission?
Where to start? So there's a lot that needs to be considered when an advisor is looking at adding digital assets to their practice. So there's many streams to this answer, because when we look at the world of cryptocurrency investing just on its own, and forget tokenized investments and NFTs and everything that's coming in that digital world, there was no way to just plug in. There's exchanges that are built for consumer, and the consumer manages them. And advisors have compliance and regulatory issues they have to deal with in terms of making sure there's a regulatory framework, that transactions are tracked, that they need ways to manage all their clients through a single interface. They, just like they can't log into your bank account to manage it for you, they need tools. So the tools didn't exist for the advisors. As we know, globally, the regulatory framework is in flux, and we're seeing regulatory movement, but there isn't absolute clarity yet. So a lot of that's in flux, which means advisors have to be entrepreneurial and take a bit of a leadership role in the space. Then there's 300 or 400 exchanges globally where consumers can buy cryptocurrency. So just on the vendor selection on the liquidity side, that's a huge concern. We still see barriers every day moving fiat onto the exchanges, and banks blocking transactions. Then you have custody. What custody looks different in cryptocurrency. You've got, what if a client shows up and they've got some Bitcoin? How do you trace source of funds? So just from a tactical, how do I do it? There needed to be a tool. But then advisors have to meet proficiency. So how do they understand the protocols, the basics of blockchain, the basics of custody, liquidity, DeFi, in order to meet their proficiency and be able to have that conversation with their client? So that's where the Amy Learn series came from, where let's help them manage and meet that proficiency. Then they've got clients coming in saying, I've got crypto or I want crypto, and the clients are often ahead in terms of education than the advisors are. So we recognized they were in kind of a challenging role. And then for us, we looked at the complexity of this world and consumers navigating this on their own. And if you look at the last 2 months of fallouts and bad actors and problems in the space, we fundamentally believe that advisors and financial professionals need to meet the proficiency to support their clients, to help provide guidance and to help drive regulatory certainty to make this a safer place. So our mission is to really have a hand in guiding the frameworks to make this more usable and more safe.
How do you prioritize that challenge? Because there's so many challenges there. You're still a relatively small team at this moment. How are you prioritizing, like, what is the most important there?
It's really driven by the customer. So we had built the platform and the platform works, and we have our early adopter clients. So they have a hand in telling us what they need the platform to do. And so we listen very closely to them. That drives adoption. But the real pivot was learning. And so we've seen so many clients come in wanting our learning series. And so that's where the effort is. We've got to deliver on where the demand is in the market. And yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a million things to do every day, but at the end of the day, if there's a client wanting something, that gets our focus.
Tell me a little bit more about these 4 series you've got. So you've got Amy Learn, Services, Pro, and Shelf, if I'm correct. Yeah. The first one, which one was the first one? Because you've got full control of the first one. It was under your lead, yeah?
Yeah, so Amy Pro, so that's the platform to enable wealth management advisors to transact. So separately managed account interface. And in that case, we partnered with Gemini to provide liquidity and custody. And essentially it allows our advisors to create accounts for their clients, fund them, and invest in cryptocurrencies the same they do traditional securities and other investments, and then feed that into their platform. We thought, honestly, adoption would be faster, but really what emerged was 2 things which drove services was helping a firm go from 0 to a digital asset practice. So services came next, where we really had to guide clients through the journey and help them navigate. And so that's workshops and education and a number of things. And then recognizing that's not going to be scalable, and education is so dramatically needed in this space. There's just no education specifically for wealth advisors and their ecosystem. That drove the need for Learn. So we have a chief learning officer who runs that. And then the Shelf was it's a forward thinking, what's going to happen when there's tokenized investments and there's NFTs and there's hundreds of thousands of global products in the crypto and digital asset space. And how are companies that are creating products going to get them in front of advisors, and how are advisors going to select them? And we're using traditional finance term shelf, because at a dealer, broker, or an investment house, products on the shelf are what the advisors can sell to their clients or invest in for their clients. So we really see this opportunity for a global basket of tokenized investments, and the need, again, for a single place to learn, research, and be able to transact.
Tell me, what did you learn from Amy Pro from the beginning? What did you learn from this one, which you could then apply to the other services that you're now providing?
Okay, a lot of our learning was the complexity of cryptocurrencies coming into traditional finance. And so learning, taking data and transaction reports from a 24/7 network and feeding that into traditional finance, and really understanding both sides. So we really understand traditional finance and wealth management platforms and how advisors work, and engineers on the cryptocurrency side, completely different language, completely different speed. So a lot of it was really just the pure detail and depth of the data, the transactions, the normalizing of it, how in different regions, you can select different assets for tax losses and things. So really understand, how do you take this data and put it into that world? And making the interface simple. So if you've been into a cryptocurrency exchange, they can be quite complex and technical. So how do you make that simple? So really focusing on the workflows and the simplicity, so it looks like traditional investing, but also has all the benefits of digital asset investing.
Tell me, what was the tech challenge from that side of the product? How difficult was the how difficult was the tech challenge with trying to push these all together?
It's been an incredibly deep process. Our team has had to map out things and workflows that weren't created. So one of the first SMA interfaces in the world, we're going to vendors who have consumer products and workflows, and we have to layer our workflows on top of their workflows. So really working with the custody and liquidity solutions that were built and mapping out how to build that into our platform. So it's not to be underestimated, the tech challenges our team has been through.
I can imagine. And I can imagine the tech challenge is only about to get harder the more the industry evolves as well.
Yeah, I think we're very fortunate because we've now got that framework. So every time we add a token or a coin, we now know what the workflow and the processes are. So, to give you an example, we can be collecting data from a Bitcoin transaction. So, if you buy a stock, like an Apple stock or a Tesla stock, you buy one stock and you get a transaction fee associated to that, and it's a single unit. With a cryptocurrency, you can have 8 decimal points, 13 decimal points, and those orders can fill, you can say, I want to buy 1 unit of Bitcoin, but because it's Satoshis behind it, that can fill in 2 transactions, 20 transactions. It can fill over days, depending on the price. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't just translate into traditional wealth management systems. And a lot of the traditional wealth management systems were built for 2 decimal places. They were built for cash fiat money. And so we've had to do a lot of work in terms of how do we educate advisors? How do we make sure our system captures everything and displays it correctly? And then how do we get that into a traditional system so a regulated entity can see that data in the way they are required to see it, report it, and provide that information to their clients? Wow. So if you think of, 1 coin, 2 coins, top 10 coins, that's one challenge. And then when you look at what's tokenized real estate going to look like, what are NFTs going to look like? What are, security-backed tokens going to look like? What are energy-backed tokens going to look like? They're all going to have these new data points that we have to ingest and figure out how to display. Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a challenging time, but I mean, as we said earlier, the engineers that are working on this, and you guys love the challenge. It's why you've done so many startups. At the same time as well, love a challenge. Tell me, talking about education, how important is the education part of it at the moment?
It's our top priority. It's incredible the shift this year that we have seen. Wow. For advisors and their worlds, tax accountants, to understand this. And there's a number of factors. I was at Bitcoin 2022, 30,000 people were in attendance, tons of traditional finance people. I was at Bitcoin 2018 in San Francisco, a couple hundred people, very grassroots. You would not see a traditional finance person in the room. So you could just see the emergence of traditional finance saying, we've got to figure this out, right? Mm-hmm. And as you see these large announcements from banks saying, we've got to figure this out, we've got to have a strategy, there's a shift and people are recognizing they have to understand it. And where do you start now? You go do a search on the internet, you hope you find some reputable sources, you often end up watching some YouTube videos, and so there's no curated journey or modules or proficiency steps or certifications, all of that's lacking. And so we've taken the approach that we've got starters, we've got maps, we've got proficiency maps. So starting with the fundamentals, you have to understand the fundamentals of blockchain and ledgering. And then there's different blockchains, and there's different, and liquidity and custody are different, and what is DeFi and what is staking and what is yield. And I think with the fallout that we saw over the last couple of months, advisors are being asked by their clients to help them navigate this more than ever. So, if an advisor sort of said, this is high risk, I can't touch it, it's not really acceptable anymore, because the clients are then driven to do it on their own and then coming back saying, oh, I messed up, now what do I do? Mm-hmm. Or not messed up, or, they don't have the proficiency. So every conversation we're having right now is starting with learning, and it's often starting with executive presentations. So getting in front of boards and strategic decision makers in the company to really talk about Web3, where the world's going, why digital money and tokenization matters, where the next generation of their clients is going and wants to be. And then it leads into, okay, we've got to learn about this. So the learning series kicks in, and we're trying to make it manageable. So we have snacks and bites and meals. We don't have 8-hour courses that are technical. Our chief learning officers built it into digestible content, which is new. Looking at this being, as he calls it, the biggest learning challenge he's ever seen in his career.
Oh, okay.
And he spent almost 20 years at IBM leading their global learning strategies. And this is different. You can't take a course and it's relevant forever. And so really, he's come up with a way to make it bite-sized, that you can build on it, that you can kind of follow your own journey and start to create those paths of fundamentals through to more advanced. And it's pretty exciting. The world is just loving it. Like it's so well received.
So how do you make something so complicated? How do you explain it in simple terms for people that have no understanding of it before? And I guess that's a challenge, but if you're taking it in snack bites kind of approach, it makes it more, well, you're able to digest it a little bit more. How else are you actually challenging the complexity into simplicity?
Lots of ways. So I think you could probably do a whole podcast with Chuck, our chief learning officer, and have him do a deep dive into learning. So there's a number of tools. So we built a glossary. So there's terms, right? Because whenever we start talking about this, there's a language that we're going to start using that people either want to read about in advance or need to be able to refer to as they're going through some of the modules. We've built primers, so starter packs. So really introductory, what is blockchain, kind of call it 0-0, the primer level, like you're just getting started and we need to set a framework. And then it continues to get deeper, and then there's more content. So and it's a hybrid of content. There's reading, there's links to books, there's links to white papers, there's links to videos, there's video programs. So there's lots of ways to learn it and ingest it. And then we're building, we have an Ask an Expert. So we're building communities of practice. So for anyone who's gone down this rabbit hole, a lot of, once you start your learning journey, is having people to talk to, having people to ask questions, especially on the more complex topics, right? So, if you're sort of going, okay, I think I understand regulatory, but I need to talk to somebody in regulatory, in the US specific to an RIA, we have a network of experts that our learning clients can connect with. One of the really fascinating things is we're ledgering the journey on the blockchain as an immutable record. So advisors will be able to visibly show what courses, what modules, what learning they've undertaken, and be able to share that and carry that with them. So yeah, there's a number of things that are coming, adding in news content so that, there needs to be critical thinking here, that I now understand the fundamentals and I can now read an article and start to apply that knowledge and have a group of people I can go to have that conversation with. So it's a lot of things brought together to create a journey that is digestible and hopefully makes people feel good. We found so many people who started on their learning journey and just said, this is too complex, and backed out, right? And people don't like to feel like that I can't tackle this. So our goal is to really make it digestible.
I guess it kind of reminds me of a situation where, obviously, let's take, for example, people learning languages. When you're learning a language, you've got a full-time job, you've got to do it in the evenings, you've got to give your time, like a hobby to this thing. But once you get hooked, you can actually then use that language which you've got. And it's the same kind of idea. Once you've got through the basics, you're able to then read the articles, you're able to process it and actually use it for your benefit. Same as languages, you go to a country and you can actually use it. So that's how it seems to me, obviously, but something which can bring a lot more wealth. Tell me about the challenges from, for example, from the beginning, your first major challenge that you had compared to the challenge you've got now.
In the beginning, we were in that, I think, in that really early stage. selling a product that the world didn't yet know it needed.
Mhm.
So knocking on doors and really trying, having conversations with advisors and firms that we don't need this. We're not going to invest in this. Our clients don't want this. And I think at the time, I think around January 2020, it was about 10% of consumers were asking their advisors for help in this space. And now we're seeing anywhere from 50 to 80% of consumers going to their advisors, right? So you've seen a big shift in the consumer asking the advisor. So really it was selling something early to a market that wasn't ready. And then now, we spent a couple of years building it. It's just the scale of the engagements and the number of firms now that want to be engaged that now need to go through the journey and the workshops and all of that. So we're shifting into very little demand, very little interest to just an abundance of demand and interest. So
okay, yeah,
good problems to have. I am absolutely not complaining.
Exactly, definitely one of those problems you want to have. Absolutely. Tell me more of a personal challenge now. Obviously, going from the tech background into wealth management, what was the challenge you had personally from doing this yourself?
For me, it was just lack of understanding workflows and the language in the space, right? So there's different terminology. There's a lot of regulatory. I'm shocked, truthfully, at Canada has so much regulatory frameworks and layers and rules for advisors. So learning that was, again, like another language, right? Through my career, I've worked with a number of different types of companies. So it was really getting to understand the customer and their world. It's a lot more complex than I imagined it to be.
Tell me, let's look more, we've done the challenges, and let's look more to the future. We're talking about the future and how it's going to be, it's just growing and it's going to continue to grow. And really, you said about the exhibitions, where in 2018, there was hardly any people, compared to now. Let's keep it short, what is going to be the future in this industry within the next 2 years?
Next 2 years. I think you'll see a lot more adoption of just the basic cryptocurrencies integrated into traditional finance systems. So we want all our investments side by side. We want single portals. And I think you'll see regulatory certainty is coming because there's been too many problems. The regulators now have to drive some certainty. So I think those are the big short-term pieces.
How about with regards to you personally, seeing around corners, getting ahead of trends before they happen? Obviously, another great example is this here. How are you doing this? What are you using in your past experience to get ahead of this trend?
I think that's where I spend a lot of time reading and just absorbing information on things like what the network protocols are building, what's really going on with Web3, how is the metaverse maturing, how is digital, I can just see how is money we need digital money, right? You can't go into the metaverse with a $20 bill. You need the currency of the metaverse. And just what I really do, honestly, is I look at the kids. I look at the next generation and what they're doing and what they're thinking and what they're interested in. And I imagine what the world's going to look like for them. And I can see it really clearly for them. I can see what my kids' world is going to look like in a decade.
What does that look like?
So, I look at things like, will children graduate school and go to a single university, or when will the opportunity emerge to take classes and courses globally, virtually?
Wow.
Right. So, is a degree going to be, I went to this university, or I was able to put these courses together? Now, obviously there's a lot behind that, but I can imagine that as a possibility, right? So more virtual, more global. I look at, will they go to work in an office on their first day of work, or will they be putting on some glasses and they'll be in some sort of hybrid virtual meeting room? What will shopping look like? I mean, retail shopping there's so much opportunity for online shopping. How's that all going to integrate? And then how's the money going to flow? So are my kids' generation, are they going to get paid in cash? Are they going to do e-transfers? Are they going to want, they understand things like Bitcoin and owning the asset? And if they want to buy a place, are they going to want to get a Bitcoin backed mortgage where you have the opportunity to still hold the asset and leverage it? So I sort of look at what their world's going to be like, and what, imagine how we need to build the rails to support that.
Incredibly exciting what it can be just in such a short amount of time as well. Tell me, in regards to your experience throughout your career, what do you now know? So from the beginning of your career to now, what do you now know which you are applying every day to what you were doing then?
I mean, personally, I think it's just a confidence that I've can see what's coming and build and iterate and help engage people in technology development. That it's always changing, it's always evolving, and the reality is anything is possible. And if you can imagine it, it can be built, and we can solve so many problems with technology. And yeah, so I think it's just the possibilities and just the freedom to go and be a part of that.
Tell me, the last question for you here, and this is probably the best one for advice for the founders that are listening to this podcast. What a bit of advice could you give them? The best, you've started 6 startups, I think I remember you saying 6 startups, a lot of startups. What's the best bit of advice you can give other founders or people about to start on their journey for starting their startup and making it a success?
There's 2 parts to it. I think the most important part is the team you surround yourself with, making sure that you have a really strong support network so that when you're down, there's people who can lift you up, that you're not alone. I don't think we need to be alone. We don't need to have the CEO hierarchy anymore where everybody's alone and one person carries the stress. So having a team that you trust, that can deliver, and that really allow you to do your best role. So, identifying your strengths and filling the team with people who have the strengths you don't have. To me, that's the number one thing. There's no success here without the team behind us. The vision is huge, and the success and the traction is huge because of the team we have. And then my other piece is just be really customer focused. You need somebody to see enough value in your product to pay for it. And I've seen way too many really good ideas that the market doesn't need, or the market isn't ready for. So really always, and again, it's part of being around the people. Your early adopter clients are also your team, because they're the ones who are believing in you and giving you feedback and giving you their hard-earned money in exchange for whatever you've come up with. So yeah, it's people. Have good people around.
Well, I'm only as strong as my team, basically, isn't it? So
yeah, and it's 100% true.
Hey guys, it's me again. If you enjoyed this episode of the show, be sure to press the thumbs up button below. And also, whilst you're there, hit subscribe. Otherwise, you could miss out on all of our interesting content we've got coming your way in the near future. Okay, guys, take care and see you soon.